Hello and welcome back to DIY Bry. Some of you that have seen my videos know that I used to have a 2007 F150 3.5 liter Triton V8 and it is gone now. I've replaced it with my new 2018, well new to me, 2018 3.5 liter EcoBoost, and the towing is so much different. It's so much better with this new truck. It has so much more torque, get up and go, and it can pull and tow night and day. Now this new truck doesn't have a leveling kit on it like my other truck used to have. So when I drop the trailer on it, it's pretty level. But I noticed in my test run of towing my trailer that there was a lot of up and down movement. So that's why today I'm going to be adding a new Timbren shock or suspension enhancement system. So this I want to just basically cushion the up and down movement of the trailer in the back, where in the other video I installed some Timbren shocks to reduce SAG. I shouldn't be needing to reduce any SAG here, and I'm hoping that by adding these I'm not increasing the rear end up higher, but just cushioning the trailer up and down movement when towing or hitting bumps on the road. So let's get to the install. Like and subscribe so you can see more bodacious videos. I usually name all my trucks girl names, but I've decided to call this one Gandalf the Grey. So the first step in this would be to remove the stock bump stop. To get that factory bump stop out, we're going to be using a 1/2 inch, or you could use a 13mm deep well socket with an extension. And this will just go right up underneath inside the bump stop, and you'll be able to loosen that. So you can see I've stuck that deep well socket, and I'm able to start to loosen that bolt. Just need to do this until it's completely done. Alrighty, factory bump stop is out of there. You can see that's a pretty long screw, so it takes a little while to undo. But you can see how I did that. Just shove the extension up inside and you'll be able to undo the bolt. After you remove the factory bump stops, you will replace them with these mounting brackets. Now these brackets in my kit were not labeled which one is which. In my research, I figured out that this is the driver's side. So these little tabs that pop up will go on the inside of the frame. And so on the tire side, if you will, it's the flat side. So this mounts right up to the frame. And you'll notice too, when you're looking at the tire from the side, the flat side of the bracket will be gone, the engine side, or the round side will be towards the tailgate. So that's how you determine which bracket is which. Is the round points to the tailgate, the tabs are on the inside. The Timbren kit will come with 2 sizes of bolts. When you're mounting the mounting bracket, you will use the shorter bolt with a lock nut washer. These are for when you're adding the actual bump stop piece to the bottom of the bracket later on. So for now, we're going to tighten these up. Should be a 17mm socket or wrench. It's going to be probably easier to use a wrench in this tight quarters than to use a socket, but more power to you if you can use a socket. Now I do not have a 17mm ratcheting wrench. I thought it'd be a lot easier to use a ratcheting, so I was able to get the 11/16, and it's just about the right size, and that'll help me to tighten that up. I've started the bolts with my fingers, and you can see that the tabs are on the inside, flat side towards the engine, round side towards the tailgate, and that will just tighten right up when I do the 11/16 wrench on there. So I have the bolt into the frame. It was very awkward to pinch my fingers and try to hand tighten that nut or that bolt in the space. Kind of have a little bit of a cramp in my finger, but from here I'll use the 11/16 wrench to tighten that down. Now you can see this little round piece is over the axle, so that's how we know that it's on the right side. Next is to install the actual Timbren shocks. So, made in Canada. Inside you'll see a washer. That's going to be the hardest part, is lining up that washer with the extended long bolt. You'll want to use this one here, and it will thread right up into the mounting bracket. You don't need a nut or anything on the other side, but getting that through the washer is going to be the hardest part. Okay, now that the bolt is through the Timbren shock and through this rubber top plate, Next is to find your socket and extension situation. So I went with a regular 11/16 socket and a little bit of it's probably like a 2-inch extension. Now the reason I didn't go with a deep well socket is because when this is sitting upright, that bolt is going to fall down into the deep well socket. So the short one will keep the bolt up higher in place. Now you don't want the extensions to stick out too far, because once this is up in the shock, maybe, one-handed video, you don't want this to hang down too far because you'll be fighting with the axle. So you don't want too much space. So this setup is just enough for me to get my socket in there and then tighten the screw. So if you're doing this on the ground in your driveway or in your garage, it's easier to come and lay underneath the truck to do this part rather than trying to come through the wheel well, because you can have constant pressure and you can pinch the socket so that it will ratchet back even though the bolt's not loose or is still loose. So I'd recommend you lay on your back and do this from under. Next will come putting on the bottom bracket piece. This will sit over the like so. The flat part up against the shock here, and the round part facing in towards the truck. Now, especially on the driver's side, you're going to want to make sure you avoid any cables that might be hanging down. And then you just add the bottom bracket piece to the bottom, like so, followed by a washer and a lock nut on each, and tighten that down to about 30 foot-pounds. I had to push this cable to the left a little bit, at least from my perspective it's to the left, so that this would sit flush with the brackets on the axle. And you want to make sure that this, if I can point to it, there we go, is as flat as possible. Kind of hard to determine when you're on your back here, but that's so that when the Timbren engages on this, that it's as flat as possible. And there we are. The brackets and bolts have been tightened down to about 30 foot-pounds. And that bracket sits on top of the axle. And when the trailer is loaded onto the truck and the truck is under load, the Timbren shock will come down and connect with this plate. And that will provide some extra ride support and extra SAG resistance from the rear end. So I'm hoping that when I tow my trailer next time, I won't feel such an up and down movement from my truck when the trailer goes over a bump. So there's the Timbren shocks, and we'll see how it goes. We'll drop the trailer on it, take some measurements. Like and subscribe so you can see more Bodacious videos.